Hello, we've got a mixed operations problem for you today. 5 plus 6 times 6 plus 5, and we want to find out what that equals. All right, so first of all, I want to start by saying the answer is not 71. I've seen this problem posted online. I've seen a lot of people answer 71, and I want to go through and explain why that answer is not correct. All right, so first of all, at no time really in history was solving blindly left to right a thing. We have the order of operations, which has been around for centuries. It has roots that go all the way back to the 16th century, at least within Western civilization. It's been taught for a very long time. There are some acronyms out there. I'm not really a big fan of these. Depending on where you're from, you may or may not have heard of these. They're not always used. Um, I really prefer for people to understand the order of operations and really understand the relationship between multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction, and not worry so much about these silly acronyms because I see people get these wrong all the time. At least here in the United States, PEMDAS is a familiar acronym. It's parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. In the UK and some other countries, they use BODMAS, brackets, orders, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. There's also BEDMAS and BIDMAS. They still use the E for exponents, and BIDMAS has I for indices. And there's also GEMS, which is another one. But all of these give you the same answer, and that's where people get confused. People look at these letters and they'll see an M before a D or a D before an M. They'll even see A before S and think, well, somehow I have to do addition before subtraction. These things really get confusing and I don't like them. But I'd rather people just understand the order of operations. First of all, if you understand that multiplication is repeated addition, that's literally all multiplication is. It's always had precedence over addition without parentheses. But I'll see people all the time say things like, well, there's no parentheses around the 6 times 6, so you just solve left to right. And I think a lot of that is some leftover um, confusion about acronyms. It's leftover confusion where I think people were taught years ago that when you see multiplication, just assume there's parentheses around it, or you go ahead and put parentheses around it. I mean, you can put parentheses around the 6 times 6. It's redundant to do so. They're not needed. It's not necessary. But somehow people got a disconnect there thinking that, well, it's customary to put them around the multiplication just to highlight it, but it's not needed, and people confuse that, and they begin to think that it's necessary when it's not. All right, so the order of operations, if I just look at PEMDAS, for example, it's parentheses, number two, exponents. That also could be things like factorials or square roots. Number three is multiplication and division, left to right. Remember, multiplication and division have equal precedence, so you just solve them left to right as you find them. Same thing with addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction have equal precedence, so there's really only four steps. So there's a big part of the confusion because all the acronyms have six letters. So many people think that they're all a six-step checklist when in fact they're not. Okay, so what do we do here? Well, we don't have parentheses, we don't have exponents, there's no division, but we do have multiplication. So the very first step is 6 times 6, which is 36. And then it's 5 plus 36 plus 5 gives us 46, not 71. All right, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, wait a minute, the multiplication is in the middle. Why would I do that first? Again, if you understand the order of operations, you know that multiplication already has precedence over addition, so you do the multiplication first, regardless of where it is. I could have written this 6 times 6 plus 5 plus 5. I could have written it 5 plus 5 plus 6 times 6. Both of those still give you the answer of 46 because the multiplication needs to be solved first. I see a lot of people get confused over calculators too. If you're using like a cheap dollar store calculator, or even if you're using like a Windows computer, this is an example from a Windows computer. If you're using a standard mode calculator, you have it set for standard, and you try to enter this in, you're going to end up with 71 because when this calculator is set in standard mode, it solves in what's known as immediate execution mode. So you have to remember when your calculator has that type of an input method, you need to solve the multiplication first as you're entering it into the calculator. It's just the differences in the way calculators have inputs. If you have the calculator set for scientific mode, then it works in what is known as expression mode. So you basically have two different input modes for most calculators. Immediate execution mode, where it's just solving every operation as it's entered, and you have to be aware of that, or you have expression mode. And you notice I typed these in identically. Only this one on the right side left the expression intact. It left it as 5 plus 6 times 6 plus 5 equals, and then you get 46. When you're using the standard mode calculator, it's as if it's using an equal sign after every operation. So when you're taking 5 plus, and then you type 6, and then you go ahead and hit the multiplication sign, it just goes ahead and adds the 5 plus 6, and basically it's just like hitting the enter sign or the enter key again. So just be careful with that. A lot of people say, well, look, my little dollar store calculator says the answer is 71. Well, the problem is you're not using that calculator correctly. You can look that up. I'm not going to go into that a whole lot more. Again, we said multiplication is repeated addition. And again, it's had precedence over addition without parentheses. What is multiplication? We said it. It's repeated addition. You can take the 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is the same thing as adding 6 times. So you can replace 6 times 6 right here, everything in red. So this becomes 5 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 5 equals 46. So no matter how you write it, you can write it with multiplication. Again, which way is easier to write? Multiplication is literally shorthand for repeated addition. It's much easier to write it like this than it is to write it like this. That's really what it is. It's a shorthand. So you get the same answer. Now, again, when we talk about parentheses, people will say, well, wait a minute. It's not 46 because you have to have parentheses around the 6 times 6. In fact, you have to have parentheses to get 71. In order to get 71, you would have to prioritize 5 plus 6. Well, how do you prioritize things within the order of operations? You put parentheses around it. So you would have to put parentheses around this 5 plus 6. So then 5 plus 6 becomes 11. 11 times 6 is 66. 66 plus 5 would give you 71. You can take your cell phone calculator and play with this yourselves if you'd like, but you're going to find out that the only way you get 71 is to have these parentheses around the addition. Again, this is 46. So I've kind of beat this to death, but I'm trying to highlight a lot of the arguments that I see out there. I'll see a lot of people insisting that it's 71 based on their calculator. They'll say it's 71 because you don't have parentheses around the 6 times 6. I'm sure there's other arguments out there, but hopefully I've covered the majority of it. Hopefully this makes sense to you and you got a better idea of the order of operations. And if the video's been helpful in any way, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.